I don't even think it's possible to really express to you how overwhelming it was to have so many movies come out over Christmas, and I didn't even get to see all the ones I wanted to and review them, so here's a solution I came up with. It's gonna hopefully work. Boys in the Boat was directed by George Clooney, and Iron Claw was directed by Sean Durkin. Both of them are sports movies that came out at Christmas this year. And honestly, I got so wrapped to try to see so many different movies, I didn't get to review them all, and time's running out for 2023, so we're going to make a video. It's going to be unique. What I'm going to do is I'm going to review both these movies and make comparisons of the two, how they differ and how one's better than the other. First up, Iron Claw was directed by Sean Durkin and it stars Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White, and Lily James. And this movie tells the story of the wrestling family of the Van Halens. But more than that, it tells the personal life, the tragedies, and all that they had to push through with the pressures of their father bearing down on them to their rise of fame, but the lowest of their personal lives. I want to say, Iron Claw is something that, I don't know why, for some reason, I couldn't get hyped. I didn't believe the hype. I even saw the thing where Zac Efron got really strange looking for this role. Like, he was just, I don't know, strange, the way his muscles and stuff looked. And he got really big, and there's talk about his face looking different and all this stuff. And even with the movie, even though I love A24, I just couldn't really get myself hyped or excited for it. I don't know, I just wasn't really digging it. And I even saw the trailer and was like, it's still probably a little cheesy. Then I watched it, and I was very much wrong. This movie, it's a heartstring puller. This movie is brilliant because this movie doesn't so much focus on the sport of wrestling. There are wrestling moments. There are scenes dedicated to the brothers in the ring, and that also plays into the storytelling of pushing the characters forward and understanding them a little bit better. But a lot of this movie is just focusing on the family and that dynamic and the brothers and their pressure and just everything that this family went through, which is honestly kind of unimaginable. I'm a little bit of a wrestling guy, so I knew a little bit about the Van Halens, but I wasn't completely aware of everything that took place to them. And I think this movie helps to kind of flesh that out a little bit. You get the humanities as wrestlers and see the men beyond the ring and just how much they went through. It's really good at telling from the very beginning all the way to the end, and just, my God, such a good film. It's just really good stuff in here. And I don't think we see films like this a lot anymore either. It's just a film that feels so pure, and it's just such an emotional ride. It's hard. It's a heavy film. It's heavy to watch, and everyone here is giving great performances. Zac Efron is truly great in here. This is like something where he's disappeared. He seems like he's been trying to make some moves recently for people to take him more seriously as an actor, and everything he went through for this just complete transformation, not just physical, but mental and acting-wise that he did, truly great stuff. But Jeremy Allen White was the true scene stealer in here. I don't know why people don't know Jeremy Allen White can act. People are acting like this is a new phenomenon. They didn't know who he was. This man can do it, and he's done it for a long time. He shows up here strong and gives such a performance that's just so great. I love everything he did with that character of his and how he managed to balance being the real person with what he wanted to do and mixing that with what was on paper. Lily James is a great being to the yin of everyone in here. She's a very emotional and very smart woman. She's someone who has to be that crutch for them to lean on sometimes, and she has to have some heavy scenes because of that, and it works. The one thing I love about this movie, it's not over the top. It's very subdued. There's a shot and a chance for this movie to go really huge and big and overdeal. It doesn't. It stays quiet, and it really lets you feel that vibe. And you don't always feel happy with this movie. There are moments where things pick up and you feel great, but still, this movie keeps and stays with you. It also is really great at capturing that entire era. It helps you really understand everything, the world that they lived in, because this is still something you have to understand if you're going there. And it really does a good job at fleshing all that out, mainly because of the writing, which is very strong in here. Love the way this was told through a biopic, which isn't written in the stereotypical sense. Do have a few issues. I think the movie, for its own good, sometimes does get a little too soapy, a little too sad, a little too self-indulgent. And I think there are a few parts in here that just aren't necessary, and there are some miscast people for other celebrities in here. They're not all perfect, but overall I think this movie was really great. I had a fun time with it, and I think Iron Claw is one of the best, most dramatic feels movie I've seen all year, and I can't wait to see it again. I'm going to give the Iron Claw an 8 out of 10. So for contrast, next up we're going to talk about The Boys in the Boat, which was directed by George Clooney. This movie is very much different. This is a far more film that's set in the traditional way of telling a sports story. This way I can compare this film is kind of like Chariots of Fire. It is the most cinematic way that's been tried and true of telling the story, in the sense that we get to know the characters, but the characters aren't necessarily there to be the front and center. Their struggles and their tribulations and things like that are a large part of what pushes the story forward, but the sport is a large part of that, and we're going to have a lot of sequences of working out and training and tons of sequences of them doing the sport, because the sport is a heavy focus in here. The characters kind of play like they are 50% of the story, while the sport also is 50% of the story, and it's written in a traditional way where there's a lot of those cheesy lines and a lot of that stuff's a little corny, and it's very endearing, but it knows it can hit with you, kind of get you just right where you feel like it's a warm feeling. It's a feeling of winning. It's a feeling of getting there. There's a goal we're going towards, which is, again, something they didn't do in Iron Claw. Iron Claw is not building towards a goal. Boys in the Boat is. There's a goal. They're trying to get to the Olympics, and we set everyone up decently because everyone's coming from different backgrounds. So we kind of give them a little exposition, get them all together, and you have to know everybody in this team. And that team becomes the driving force in this movie. And I think for the most part, this movie works pretty well on its own 2 feet. It tells a truly interesting story that is extremely motivating, is the best word for it. You kind of feel pumped and like, yeah, afterwards. And it keeps characters in a situation where it feels like you're always progressing. So you're like, complete this task, do this task. But at the same time, that can get to be repetitive. And also, like I said, some of the writing in here is a little old school, and it doesn't work quite as well anymore. It's a little old and tried and true for the competition movie, and it doesn't fully just function in here as well as it could, as well as a lot of the characters in here I don't really know. There's about 3 of them, and then there's one coach that I really feel like I know, but other than that, there's not a lot in here that I really know about these people. It just seems like everyone wants to win. Here's one struggle for each person, and then we're done. Let's focus, and we'll all overcome it throughout the movie. And you kind of get a feeling of the bond they build, and you kind of get a feeling of the struggles, but at the same time, it feels very movie-ish, which equal parts feels great, but also feels like a detraction, if that makes sense. Like, at times, it feels like a movie that's like cinema, but other times it feels fake and like it's written and directed and filmed. And this movie has those cheesy moments in it that come in when you're watching it, and they can work, but they also sometimes don't. It's something that's just very mixed. There are so many parts in here that I love, but they're sometimes followed by something that's not quite as well made. I will say, set design, costume design, everything, production design, flawless in here. Really captures the era. This movie has that right feel to it. It gets that down to a science, has it beautifully done, and also this movie genuinely has a very good score, something I think Iron Claw doesn't have. This is a very good musical score which accompanies the film as a partner, and it's not trying to just be a score. It's actually helping to tell the story, which is a bigger deal and something that's harder to do and more important. So that genuinely was something that really helped this film out. Overall, I think it's the lesser of the two, but it certainly still has redeeming qualities that make it watchable. This is more a movie, though, that I feel like is a turn-on during a rainy day, whereas Iron Claw is more a movie you watch once a year to turn yourself into a depressed mess. So they both are different, but similar in different ways. Both are kind of doing the same thing, where it's showing tribulations and struggles in a sport, but do it in different ways. Let's give a rating to The Boys in the Boat. I'm going to give The Boys in a Boat a 6 out of 10. So thank you guys, as always, for so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you all next time.